What's going on, guys? Welcome back to the channel. So today I'm going to be working on the 3000, taking a small break from the DriftV because I need to get this thing back on the road and just back to a drivable state. And it only needs one small thing and hopefully it works. So as I mentioned in the last video on the 3000, my oil feed line is leaking. So for the front turbo, there's a banjo bolt on the top of the turbo, and it goes back and over to the oil filter housing. So I cannot get the banjo bolt, which is right down there, the shiny bolt, to seal. I got a new bolt itself, and I've tried the old bolt, the new bolt, both with new copper washers, and could not get the thing to seal up against the turbo and stop just pissing oil all over the turbo, and then it gets on the exhaust and just all over underneath, and it starts to smoke and smell, and it just makes a mess. So what I decided to do was try and convert it to an AN line and omit the whole banjo bolt setup. So while not actually being able to see the whole line under the AC bracket, I ended up going and buying some M10 by 1.25 thread pitch to -3 AN fittings from the Finish Line factory. So I got these guys, and then I got a piece of 18-inch Russell -3 line with a 90 on one end. So what I'm thinking is that this 90 will go on top of the turbo, and I will run the line over to the oil filter housing, and hopefully 18 inches is long enough, but I wasn't really able to fully measure it. So I took a rough estimate measurement, came up with about 18. So we'll see if this 18-inch line fits. It should. And then I'm probably going to end up wrapping this with some heat insulation, at least on the first half of it when it gets near the exhaust. So we'll get these little adapters from Finish Line factory. We'll get one installed into the turbo first, and then I'll show you guys what you need to do after that on the car to access the other part of the line. Additionally, what I'm going to do is, because of the fitting end style, I'm going to do some PTFE Teflon tape on this end that goes into the turbo, and then also this end that goes into the oil filter housing. But you don't want to use tape on the AN side because AN fittings seal with this little pressure flare right here. So I'm going to start by taking off the front intercooler pipe here. And it'll just be this clamp on this section here, and then taking this clamp off right here. I feel like I've had this pipe off so much lately that it actually worn out the C bolt clamp or T bolt clamp on the other side, and that's why I just threw a worm gear clamp on there for right now. But these things have seen better days. Pull this out. Finesse this guy out here. So I got my 14 mil in here. Just gonna get it down there on the banjo bolt. Break it free from the turbo. And get that guy unscrewed. And up and out of the way. So this was the new banjo bolt that I put in, brand new, and with the copper washer on here. And it looks like that was the one that was leaking, the top washer, judging by how much oil is on the washer itself. So yeah, looks like we're scrapping this thing. Looking up here, we have the AC bracket. Those of you guys that still have an AC compressor, I feel bad for you, because in order to do this, you're going to have to pull the AC compressor out, because I need to pull the AC bracket out. So I'm hoping I can get access. There's 4 bolts, so you can see the 2 right there, and I think the 2 inners right there, and that might be it. But I think the belt tensioner is also attached to the bracket, so I might have to pull the plastic cover off and get access from the wheel well to undo the tensioner as well. So I'm going to start by pulling the bolts off that are on the bracket that I can see, and we'll go from there. All right, so I'm here in the wheel well looking at the oil cooler fittings here, and there were 2 additional bolts up here behind this idler pulley, and then you had to take the whole tensioner out in order to free up the AC bracket, which is laying right here. So now I'm going to go from the other side. This is the entire oil filter housing right here. So ultimately on the back side of this is where our metal line, or our metal hard line for the oil feed, goes to. So I think if I slide in on the other side, I'll be able to see the port itself. I'm curious as if it's banjo or not. So instead of 4 bolts, like I thought it was, it's these 2 bolts behind the alternator, this bolt, and this bolt for the tensioner. And then you have these 4 bolts that I got from the front side of the whole bracket. And then you got the tensioner pulley right there. And you have the 2 bolts that hold on the splash shield. All right, so looking up in here, looks like we got ourselves another banjo bolt. That's a big one. So I'm gonna get myself a wrench to take that thing off and get that line out of there. I don't really know, probably just yank it through this side. And then we will see about fitting up. I'll probably put it on the turbo first, then feed it down here, and then see about getting the adapter piece in here and the AN line hooked up. It's gonna be pretty tight fit, being that I don't have much room for all the wrenches and stuff, so we'll give it a shot. It looks like a 17, so I'm gonna start with that. And I could very well be screwing myself with this, because those copper washers on there are dry as can be. They have been, they probably always will be for the life of this car. But I'm gonna go ahead and just screw it all up and put these guys in. So we'll see. Hopefully I don't screw myself by doing this and having it not work out, but we're gonna keep our fingers crossed. So what I'm gonna do first is, before I start messing with the new stuff, I'm gonna pop that off. It looked like a 17, so I'm gonna hop under there, get the banjo bolt out, and pull the metal line all the way through, get that completely removed, and then from there, we should be good. I'm hoping though, this is the idea that just came into my head, it's a bigger head on the banjo. I'm hoping that the thread pitch is the same. I don't see why it wouldn't be, because I can't see the line stepping down for some reason, but if it's not the right size, then I am going to have to be ordering another adapter and putting a pause on this tonight. So here we have it. It turns out it was just a bigger head, same M10 by 1.25 thread pitch. And it looks like the outlet is bigger, but then it pinches down when it goes to the turbo itself. So either way, we should be all right with that. We should be good with these guys. I put copper washers on them. I'm not sure if it's going to do anything, but they do have a little gap before the threads end. So I don't know. I'll throw a copper washer on there with them. Might do something, might not. But either way, got those banjo bolts aside. My 18-inch line is looking like it'll work. It's just about the same length, and it's not really gonna creep up and come down like this does. It's more gonna be a straight shot. So I'm gonna start on the turbo side, getting this 90 just mocked up and get this fitting in, and then I'll go underneath the car, get the adapter in, and try and get this side connected. So I've got the adapter in. Don't mind the old copper washer. I'll get that out. Now I got to feed this guy in and down, get the 90 on, and hope that I can finagle a wrench in there in some fashion. I don't know how, to get this thing tightened down. I might have to pull the wastegate off in order to have room. This should be interesting. All right, update. I pulled the 2 bolts and the vacuum line of the wastegate off just so I can have some room here to actually fit my hand. And I got the 90 end on here and got it tightened down. I'm gonna have to see where it routes. It gets a little close to this bracket, but I don't know if it actually gets close to the manifold itself underneath. So I'm gonna have to take a look at that down below. I do have the heat shielding that I'm gonna bring under there with me. I think we're good on length. I mean, I got it all the way up to here. So I think we'll definitely have some slack to play with. It's just the issue I ran into was just like clearance of that 90 from, I think, this bracket here, just having the space to spin it. So we'll see if we have enough room down below. And we got some good old fiberglass heat shield that we're gonna throw on. I feel like I've been putting this stuff on everything ever since I did the headers on the V, and I have some on this V now. So stuff comes in handy, does the trick. As long as it's not touching the exhaust, it does the trick. So let's get underneath and see what we got, and then hopefully we can get this thing all put back together. So I had to pull off this bracket that goes, it looks like just some kind of BS support bracket for the oil pump filter housing. Sits like that, bolts to the block here, oil filter housing here. This whole area is gonna be in the way of having a line coming straight out. So I'm gonna bring this up to the bench, trim this lip off, and try and clearance it. That way we can get it back on. But I got the adapter in up there, you can see. So that's all tightened down. And next what I'm gonna do is grab my line, wherever it is, right here. I'm gonna hook it up to the adapter itself. First I'm gonna throw my heat shielding on and get this hooked up and tightened on this end, and then go over back to the turbo end and try and clock that 90, because you probably can't see up there, but the 90 is right there touching the manifold. So I need to clock that 90 more towards the block to try and get it off the manifold, and then I think we should be in good shape. Okay, so new orientation. We got it facing straight back, and you can see the insulation here. So we got the oil feed line now, instead of how it was kind of going on an angle this way, it's going straight back. I went around this bracket here. We have clearance. So now I gotta look under and see where it falls in relation to the exhaust manifold, because if it now clears, then we're in good shape, and I'll just have to trim up that bracket and we can start putting this thing back together. I mean, I can barely see, but hopefully you guys can see up there how it no longer touches the exhaust manifold. It kind of comes around, hugs the block, and then just follows all the way right to the adapter on the housing. So we are good in this configuration here. Now I'll just trim up that bracket and we'll hope for no leaks. And I also just realized I don't have a bolt on my turbo. So yeah, I'm gonna have to try and find one of those too. That's interesting. So I clearanced the bracket, cut the little lip off, shot some paint over it just so it doesn't rust. You know, like literally we're not even gonna see this thing. So I'm just trying to get it dry enough that we could toss her back on. And it's 52 degrees in the garage, so paint's taking a little longer to dry. It's pretty chilly down here in Florida. We got a cold front. It's been getting into like the 30s the last 2 nights. Thankfully that ends tomorrow. But yeah, we're just gonna try and get this thing wrapped up and get this car buttoned up and start it to see if we have any leaks or anything. And I really hope we don't have any leaks, because if we do, I quit. I'm done. I'm just gonna send this thing to the front garage, bring the black V back here because we really gotta, the reason I wanna get this thing done is, well, one, so I can cruise the streets with it, but also because I really need to get it out of this bay so that I can get the black V back here and we can start the clutch project. So fingers crossed, let's get this thing put back together. All right, so we're all buttoned back up. We got everything reattached. Tensioner belt is back on, all that jazz. So I got the garage cracked. We're gonna try and fire this hog up, and I gotta let it warm up a little bit and the oil temp basically rise to get it flowing, and then that's when it would typically take like 10 minutes before it would start leaking. It seems like once the oil start getting a little like thinner and moving through the engine. But I'm gonna keep an eye down below for any drips, but mainly I'll be able to, I wanna keep an eye on this spot right here with the turbo. You know, it's very easy to see and maybe hard to see on camera, but we're gonna keep an eye on that area to see if there's any oil seeping out. And I really, 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 really hope that no oil seeps out. So let's try and get this thing started. It's been a few weeks. So taking a look, we are, see if I get the light back on there. The lifter's finally just quieted down. We're still dry. We're still looking pretty good. So guys, it's still running over there and we are still good. There are no oil leaks coming from it, and now that I'm touching the oil line, we are starting to get some heat in the oil. So I think we might be in the clear. I'm gonna let it keep running, but I think we're good. So keeping my fingers crossed that we stay good. You know, I'll really be able to get some heat through it once I take this thing back on the road. So maybe Thursday night, we'll take it to Throttle Thursday and see after driving somewhere and driving back if it leaks at all. No leaks on the ground, no leaks on the turbo. So as of right now, we're in good shape. So I will put the links to the parts that I used below. The one thing I should also mention is when I cut up that bracket, I ended up just cutting it above the bolt hole closest to the oil filter housing. So I cut the whole top section off because with it snaked behind the line, it just wasn't clearing. And when I got it to clear, it was still putting pressure on the line. So I ended up just cutting that bracket in half and getting rid of that whole upper bolt hole spot. So guys, I think we're good. I'm gonna wrap it up here. If you have any questions on doing this conversion for the front AN line or the front turbo feed line, converting it to a -3 AN line, drop a comment below. I'll answer to the best of my ability. And you know, thanks for watching. If you guys made it this far, thanks for subscribing. And if you don't, subscribe to the channel. And I'll see you guys in the next one.